This is the Corniche Street. This is the main street of Tartous. And as you can see now, the security forces are preparing to initiate a security operation in order to proceed all these Assad remnants in a place where they refuse to disclose. But as you can see, a huge preparation, so many numbers were assembled, and also like minutes ago, a security source just told Al Jazeera that one personnel was killed and two was injured by a hit-and-run attack was conducted in the road between Homs and Banias. That's why the security forces here in Tartous province and all the province of the coast part of Syria, the western part of Syria, are preparing to looking after these security breaches and also following up all these hitters. And as I said, they are applying this hit-and-run style, which makes it very difficult to the security forces to look after them and to eliminate them. Omar Al-Hajj, Al Jazeera, Tartous.
While the government is securing the area, dozens of Syrians have taken shelter in the Russian airbase in the Latakia region. They include civilians and former members of the Assad regime and their families. The group waited hours before Russian forces allowed them to enter the Hemim base. Let's get an update now from Resul Sedar, who's our correspondent in Damascus. Resul, the death toll now in the hundreds. What's the latest you're hearing about the security situation in those northwestern regions?
Well, now the clashes or the skirmishes that are happening are mostly on the outskirts of the city. So the security forces here are telling us that now the government forces are in control in the city center of Latakia, in Banias, in Tartous, and in Jabla. These places were the locations where we have seen the heavy fightings on Thursday, Friday, and early in the morning as well. But now they're saying that they have managed to get the rebels out of the city centers, and now on the outskirts, still the skirmishes, some of the clashes are happening, but they're saying that they have been able to push the majority of the remnants of the old regime toward the mountainous areas. And now the combined operations are going in and around the mountainous areas. In the coming days, I think the clashes are going to be mostly focused on the mountains in Latakia. But the escalation, I mean, in terms of the fighting, we can see that significantly has been de-escalated and the fighting have been significantly decreased.
Right, and large numbers of civilians, Resul, have sought refuge at this Russian base in Latakia region. What more do we know about the people there and what's happening to them?
Indeed, now we see that actually now the focus of the story is shifting from the heavy clashes, the fighting, to the killing of civilians. So last night we have seen dozens of civilians, some remnants of the regime, alongside with their families. They went to the Russian airbase, Hemim airbase, and after hours of waiting, the Russian forces let them in. Now they're there. We do not know what will happen to them, what's the plan about them, whether they're going to be evacuated somewhere else. However, now still they are there. On the other hand, the government forces are saying that, well, when there has been a general mobilization toward the areas that the rebels were fighting and ambushing the security forces, it was not only the security forces being deployed, but there were several other armed groups as well. And amidst that chaos, they say, unfortunately, there has been killings and violations of the civilians. So far, the images that are coming out, the pictures that are coming out, quite are tragic. So we easily can say that hundreds of people have been killed in the conflict since Thursday, and majority of them are civilians. Now, the government is blocking all the roads leading toward the coastal areas and trying to make sure that those who are going to that areas are on an official military assignment, not the people who are just getting their arms and going there and fighting. So the government is saying that they're increasing the measures, they are sending more reinforcement of the security forces to protect civilians. However, we easily can say that so far, hundreds of civilians have been killed in this fighting in the last 3 days.
Resul, thank you very much for the update. That's Al Jazeera's Resul Sedar reporting there live from Damascus. Let's discuss the situation in Syria further now with Geist Pinfold, who's a lecturer in international security at King's College London. He's joining us from Italy. Thank you so much, Rob, for being with us on Al Jazeera. This is the biggest security challenge Syria's new government is facing since it came to power. What's, first of all, led to such a large-scale coordinated attack against the Syrian government forces? And could they have seen this coming?
Well, this is something that's been, unfortunately, snowballing for some time. We know that a group calling itself the Syrian Popular Resistance announced its presence in Syria on Telegram in December of last year. We also heard a senior member of Iran's Revolutionary Guards in leaked remarks saying that Iran still has networks and people within Syria and they will activate them to cause trouble and to incite against the new regime. We have seen a slow, drip-by-drip number of casualties and attacks claimed by the Syrian Popular Resistance. On the other hand, we've also seen extrajudicial killings, the vast majority of whom the victims were from the Alawite community, which was heavily associated with the Assad regime, of course. So this descent into sectarianism has been a long time coming. And in fact, observers have predicted it for some time. It's actually quite impressive that the new government under Ahmed al-Shara has managed to keep a lid on things until now. But their bluff has very much been called. They now need to respond. They need to respond decisively. They need to show that they are the ones in charge. But they also need to do so without alienating the Alawites. The Syrian Popular Resistance is a very, very small group of individuals, mainly former Assad regime special forces. The new government under al-Shara has to be very careful not to push the broader Alawite community into the arms of the Syrian Popular Resistance.
I want to ask you a bit more about the sectarian tensions in a minute, but just a bit more on the threat they pose right now to the government. And the backing, how much of it are they getting from outside right now? You mentioned Iran. Is Iran heavily backing them right now?
Well, we're hearing more and more credible reports from observers on the ground that there is a degree of Iranian affiliation or association here. Exactly how much, we don't know. We do know that when some of these groups have been defeated or captured and equipment seized, we are talking high-tech equipment. We're also talking about the tactics used by these groups. These were not spontaneous demonstrations. These were well-planned ambushes by well-trained individuals. So this is not some sort of low-level guerrilla group here with minimal training or spontaneous demonstrations. This is something that has been well-planned ahead in advance, which would suggest that there is a state actor involved. The most likely culprit is Iran, given its links to the Syrian Popular Resistance and remnants of the Assad regime, and the fact that Iran is continuing to attempt to smuggle weapons through Syria into Lebanon to reach Hezbollah. The difference between now, of course, and the previous Assad regime is that the current Syrian government is intercepting those shipments. So it's in Iran's interests for the new government to be as weak as possible so it can exert or reassert its influence within Syria.
You mentioned, Rob, the sectarian tensions with the Alawites, and sectarian tensions have also been bubbling in the south of Syria with the Druze community there. There seems to be a lot of distrust still. And there was a lot of talk with the national dialogue about reconciliation. Why has that not happened? And how is the new government going to be addressing this, the integration of all segments of Syrian society into the transition?
Well, the lack of reconciliation, I think, is a key issue here. And it also explains, by the way, why so many thousands of Sunni men came from different parts of Syria to attack these insurgents. So that gave the government two kind of parallel problems, not just the militias, the pro-Assad remnants, but also the people from the Sunni community coming to the region outside of the control of the government. And all of this is because of a lack of reconciliation. There has been no accountability for what happened during the Assad regime. So people are taking the law into their own hands. Whereas what we would want to see would be, for example, the pursuit of justice against key figures in the Assad regime who carried out atrocities. We are unfortunately seeing a trend where one community is turning against another because it sees that entire community as complicit. But we have not seen that shift towards a state-sponsored reconciliation. And I think that could be because reconciliation is a Pandora's box. You don't know what forces or sentiments you are going to unleash. There are very, very few innocent parties and actors within Syria today. Everyone, including the current government, including people from the Alawite community, including non-affiliated Sunnis, have blood on their hands from this very, very long and very bloody civil war. So I think the government preferred to tread lightly and use reconciliatory language without actually, doing much to promote reconciliation. That is going to have to change if we want to see an avoidance of the large-scale sectarian violence that we've seen in Syria in the last couple of days.
Thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you for your insight, Rob Geist Pinfold, joining us there from Italy. Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.